Hi dear students, I hope you are all doing well and be healthy. Please tell me until which power I have teached and from which slide I must start. I don't know. Page 30, okay, thank you. Okay, so we are going to learn from research formulating a research problem. This operational step includes 4 chapters. Chapter 3, reviewing the literature. Chapter 4, formulating a research problem that you are going to study here. Chapter 5, identifying variables, and Chapter 6, constructing hypotheses. Okay, if you have any question from the sections, you can ask me. Do you have any question? Okay, so the important points in the text will be your question in final. Maybe some definition, maybe some uh, keyword will be a question in your final exam. I will talk about it in the future section. Okay, now we are going to start formulating a research problem. And in chapter 6, constructing hypothesis to study. I'm not going to teach all of the book, but the important texts and in brief. I'm teaching you in brief. Okay, the place of the literature review in research is your title and one of the essential preliminary tasks when you undertake a research study is to go through the existing literature in order to acquaint yourself with the available body of knowledge in your area of interest. Uh, Dear students, do you have my voice? Do you have my sound? Okay. Reviewing the literature can be time-consuming, daunting, and frustrating, but it is also rewarding. The literature review is an integral part of the research process and makes a valuable contribution to almost every operational step. So please notice that literature is a part of study that is necessary and it's maybe uh, going to consume time, but it is a part of the research that makes a valuable contribution. So this step is important. And chapter 4, we are going to study about formulating a research problem. As I told you, formulating a research problem. A research problem broadly speaking, any question that you want answered and any assumption or assertion that you want to challenge or investigate can become a research problem or a research topic for your study. So when you want to define the title, you must be very careful because the most important and attractive text in your research is your title. So you must search for new and attractive title, and every question that you want answered and any assumption you want to challenge, you can select for your research topic. However, it is important to remember that not all questions can transform into research problems, and some may prove to be extremely difficult to study. So maybe there are many questions related to your topic, but you cannot investigate all of them. You can do it partially and you can investigate some of that questions for answer. Okay, if you have any question, you can ask me. Okay, the next power is the formulation of research objectives. And you are going to study about objectives, what are objectives, and the formulation of research objectives. Objectives are the goals you set out to attain your study. Since these objectives inform a reader of what you want to achieve through the study, it is extremely important to word them clearly and specifically. objectives should be listed under two headings. So the objectives are um, divided into category main objectives and sub-objectives. You have two kinds of objectives in your study, main objectives and sub-objectives. The main objective is an overall statement of the thrust of your study. It is also a statement of the main associations and relationships that you seek to discover and establish. The sub-objectives are the specific aspects of the topic you want to investigate within the main framework of your study. So we have objectives and sub-objectives. Sub-objectives are the main goals for us, and then the sub-objectives are the specific aspects of the objectives or the topics. Okay, here and in this chart, you are going to get bigger. Figure number 4-5 that I choose for you in power is characteristics of objectives. And you have this table in your book. So you can see characteristics of objectives must be clear, complete, specific, identify the main variables to be controlled, identify the direction of the relationship. So the plus between these characteristics means that all of these characteristics must include the objectives. So please notice clear, complete, specific, identify the main variable to be correlated, and identify the direction of relationship. Okay, clear, complete, and specific are as descriptive studies, as you read it before. And clear, complete, specific, and identify the main variables. Concluded correlational studies, experimental and non-experimental studies that we have talked about it the previous week. And all of these characteristics are hypothesis testing studies. So please note how hypothesis testing studies conclude all of these characteristics. Okay, and then in chapter 5, we have identifying variables. And I didn't teach you anymore in chapter 4, as you see. I'm going to take it brief for you, and we are starting chapter 5, identifying variables. In this chapter, you will learn about what variables and concepts are and how they are different, how to turn concepts into operational variables, to study types of variables from the viewpoint of causation, the study design, the unit of measurement. So in this chapter, we are going to study about these topics. Okay, now what is a variable? What is a variable? Who can define a variable? What is a variable? Do you know? What's the definition? No, no. Miss Adnan, the meanings of a variable itself. Uh, mm, Please notice the variable itself. What is a variable? Not means the value of a variable. And I don't know if you know the definition of variable. Okay, I'm just going to tell you myself. Uh, Whether we accept it or not, we all make value judgments constantly in our daily lives. This food is excellent. Please notice to the example. This food is excellent. I could not sleep well last night. I do not like this and I think this is wonderful. These are all judgments based upon of our own preferences, indicators, or assessments. Okay? Because these these explain feeling or preferences. The basis on which they are made may vary markedly from person to person. Okay, so you can say the meaning of a variable that is not constant. It is going to change from one person to another person, for example. Okay, so the feelings, the preferences uh, can be varied, and then these variables are very important in our research. Okay, there is no uniform yardstick with which to measure them. A particular food may be judged excellent by one person but awful by another. So there is no uniform yardstick with which to measure them. A particular food may be judged excellent by one person but awful by another, and something else could be wonderful to one person but ugly to another. So the things it could be wonderful to one person but ugly to another person. So um, these traits are variable from one person to another person, and we call them variable. Is it possible to bring him back? I don't know what's your meaning, Miss Adwan. Okay, examples of concepts and variables you can see in table number 5, 1. Number 5, 1. Examples of concepts and variables. Okay, in this table, it is very good, clear, clearly, it is going to explain the concepts and variables. So you can see the relationship between concepts and variables in the left column. Okay, in concepts we have effectiveness, fact, excellence, high achiever, self-esteem, rich, domestic violence, external pattern of alcohol consumption, for example, and etc. And the variables are gender, male or female, attitude, age, age is a variable too, X year, Y month, income dollar or per dollar. Okay, and another variables you can see in many researchers, many research is also weight. So you have weight too, height, height, height that can be measured by centimeter, And then religion. For example, Catholic, Protestant, Jew, Muslim, and etc. are variables too. So in this table, you can see concepts and you can see different variables that are exist in research. Okay, and now we are going to study this power. I'm going to get it bigger for you. Okay, in this uh, table, you can see concepts, indicators, and variables, and the relationship between these three important factors. Concepts can lead to indicators, and then can lead to variables. For example, this concept about reach. The indicators are income and assets. For example, indicators. So that is a good example. Income and assets. So the variable can be income per year, total value of home, boat, car, investments. So these are the variables. And here you can see decision level working definition. For example, bond. For example, bond. $100,000. For example, another example you can see here for high academic achievement. The indicators will be average marks obtained in examinations, average marks obtained in practical work, and aggregate marks, and etc. And here you can see the variables will be percentage of marks. So for these three icons, we have percentage of marks, for example, 1 or more than 75% or 80%. And another example is effectiveness of a health program. Indicators will be number of patients, changes in mortality, changes in the extent of morbidity, changes in the pattern of morbidity, changes in mortality, changes in the um, death rates, and changes in age-specific death, changes in nutritional states, changes in weight, changes in illness, and in morbidity. These are the indicators of or sub-indicators too. And the variables will be one number of patients serviced in a month or year. So please notice your concept was the effectiveness of a health program. So the number of patients serviced in a month or year is your variable. Okay. The changes in morbidity rate, number of illness or episodes per 1000 TCP is your variable, and changes in morbidity typology is 2. Another variables are contained changes in CTR, changes in ASTR, changes in weight, illness episodes in a year, and charges in morbidity type. You can see here that this is the decision level, whether the differences in before level is statistically significant. Point prevalence increase is another variable for researcher deciding. Okay, you can see here 3 examples, and in these 3 examples you can see the concepts, indicators, and variables. If you have any question, I'll read all of these 3 examples for you. If you have any question, you can ask me. Okay, if you don't have a question, I'm going to continue. And now you can see from the viewpoint of causal relationship in studies that attempt to investigate a causal relationship or association for sets of variables may operate 1. Change variables and 2. Outcome variables. No, yes, important, but just for understanding. It is just for understanding the concepts. Okay, so we have 2 kinds of variables here: change variable and outcome variables. Change variables, which are responsible for bringing about change in a phenomenon, situation, or circumstance. 2. Outcome variables, which are the effects, impacts, or consequences of a change variable. So, with definition of these 2 variables, we can see their goal and their aim is different. For example, in change variable, you can see changing in something, for example, a phenomenon, situation, or circumstance. But in outcome variable, we can see the effects or impacts of that changing or change variable. Number 3 is variables which affect or influence the link between cause and effect variables. And number 4, connecting or linking variables which in certain situations are necessary to complete the relationship between cause and effect variables. Okay, in research terminology, change variables are called independent variables. Okay, so change variables are equal to independent variables. Outcome effect variables are called dependent variables. Dependent. The unmeasured variables affecting the cause and effect relationship are extraneous variable, and the variables that link a cause and effect relationship are called intervening variables. So we have four kind of variable. Please notice independent variable. And this book is very good explaining these variables. For example, change variable. You can see change variable are equal to independent variable. Change variable is equal to independent. And outcome variables is equal to dependent variables. Independent variables, the cause sought to be responsible for bringing about changes in the phenomenon or situation. Dependent variable, the outcome variable or changes brought out by introduction of an independent parameter. Number three, extraneous variable. Several other factors operating in a real life situation may affect changes in the dependent variable. These factors not measured in the study. So please notice not measured extraneous variable is not measured in the study may increase or decrease the magnitude or strength of the relationship between independent and dependent variables. And the fourth variable is intervening variable. Intervening variable, sometimes called the confounding variable. Okay, and now if you have any question, you can ask me. Okay, dear students, don't worry. We will talk about the type of questions in this book or in this discipline. Uh, don't worry. First of all, we must read because I think your sections are behind because your classes formation was with delay, and I'm going to teach you because of that. And then other sections we will talk about the kind of questions or another thing. And in this number 4, you can see the description that was not in the previous power. intervening variable, sometimes called the confounding variable. It links the independent and dependent variables. In certain situations, the relationship between an independent and a dependent variable cannot be established without the intervention of another variable. The cause or independent variable will have the assumed effect only in the presence of an intervening variable. I don't know why the students in the second or in the third section are following the questions. It is very soon for you for looking for questions. I don't know why students nowadays uh, are just going to look for questions. I don't know. We are in second or third section only. Please give time to yourself. Okay, and then in this chart you can see types of variables. Here you can see types of variables and classification of them. Causal model, study design, and unit of measurement. Okay, here causal model is that four kinds that we have already: independent variables, intervening variables, extraneous variables, and dependent variables. And in study, design study, we have two kinds of variables: two, active and attribute, that you know these variables. Active variables and attribute variables are kind of study design. Active variables. Okay? Unit of measurement is going to divide the variables in four types for us. Quantitative variables, so unit of measurement. Please notice these variables are related with unit of measurement. So in the causal model, we have four variables that we have rated. In study design, we have active and attribute. And in unit of measurement, we have two kinds of, sorry, we have four kinds of variables: quantitative variables, qualitative variables, continuous variables, and categorical or discrete variables. And this is divided to constraints, each of omics and polyomics. But we are not going to study this, and the important ones are in the top of this classification, and we are just going there. We are just going to read the variables that we have read in the text. Okay. If you don't have any question, We are going to the next section. Okay, as you saw in the chart, types of variables in a causal relationship. To explain these variables, let us consider some examples. Suppose you want to study the relationship between smoking and cancer. Okay, we are going to study an example. The relationship between smoking and cancer. You assume that smoking is a cause of cancer. Studies have shown that there are many factors affecting this relationship, such as the number of cigarettes or the amount of tobacco smoked every day, the duration of smoking, the age of the smoker, dietary habits, and the amount of exercise undertaken by the individual. All these factors may affect the extent to which smoking might cause cancer. These variables may either increase or decrease the magnitude of the relationship. And in the above example, the extent of smoking is the independent variable. So please notice the extent of smoking is the independent variable. Cancer is dependent variable because what? Because the cancer is dependent variable. It depends. Okay, so the cancer is the independent variable, and the variables that might affect this relationship either either positively or negatively are extraneous variables. So please notice. Okay, the last power we are going to study today is this chart. Smoking and cancer. You can see this example. I put the examples and the charts for you for better understanding. So, smoking might cause cancer. These variables may either increase or decrease the magnitude of their relationship. In the above example, the extent of smoking is independent variable that we have read it. And the cancer is dependent variable, and all the variables that might affect this relationship either positively or negatively are intravenous variable. Okay, in this chart you can see smoking at the top as some cause, independent variables here, cancer as some effect, and dependent variable. And at the middle of the picture you can see affect the relationship. Affect the relationship is with extraneous variables that is contained the age of the person. Okay, these are extraneous variables. The age of person, the extent of his or her smoking, the duration of smoking, the extent of the extent of daily exercise, and etc. So these factors can affect the relationship. Okay, in this figure, you see independent, dependent, and extraneous variables in a causal relationship, and that is important for you for understanding the meaning of these variables. This example is for just understanding the meanings. Okay, if you don't have any question, I'm in the class for answering you, but not about your exam or examination. It is too soon to decide and to talk about it. To continue the term and then we can talk about it. Okay, if you don't have any question, I'm going to say goodbye to you until the next week. And don't worry about your exam. Just to listen to whatever I'm going to tell to you to in your class. Don't worry, and I will go on for the next week. I think chapter 6 or chapter 7. Okay, take care of yourself. Have a good time, good days, and good week. Thank you. Bye bye.